What is the major complaint a debater's better half makes in a relationship? We never talk anymore. Why do debaters make good fishermen? Because debaters put debate on the hook. No. In school, I wanted to join the debating team, but someone talked me out of it. No. Doesn't seem to be working. Let me give you one raunchy joke. Debaters are better in bed because they can flip sides and be equally effective. Okay, jokes aside, the past 3 days of passionate arguments buzzing in the halls of IMU has given me hope that Malaysia has enough critical thinkers, intelligent, outspoken individuals to give us a fighting chance.
I think debating teaches you some of the most essential skills, not only in university or school, but probably life.
To think critically and think outside the box and be able to actually come up with new ideas.
You may have differences on a particular given issue, but you are able to discuss it in a safe and friendly environment.
Will more women mean that there is more economic mobility? We disagree.
The unique exclusive initiative that we are making and creating for the companies to have an initiative.
This tournament is unique in the sense where it focuses on one main theme, which is economics, and very relatable to Malaysian-related issues.
The number of other issues will either enhance or even make or break the relationship.
In your world, women still enter these companies, still work there, but there's just not enough of them. Discrimination they see on a daily basis. What are you doing about it?
All right, without further ado, I would like to invite IMU President Tan Sri Dato' Dr. Abu Bakar Sulaiman to the podium to say a few words.
Director of Communication from distinguished guests, judges, members of the debating teams, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Well, welcome to IMU, and it is a great pleasure and honor for the university to partner with Tamanu in collaboration with MIDP to present the Kopitiam Ekonomi Debate Challenge 2015 today. Well, now we are different times. As you know, at least some of you will know that IMU was founded in 1992, and we were the first private medical university, and we are now 23 years old. We have a learning philosophy which is grounded on our core values. And this emphasizes the students' development to be knowledgeable, competent, caring, and ethical healthcare professionals who can be leaders of their community and who are critical thinkers, who are capable of being reflective, proactive, and ready to serve the community. We are committed to producing graduates who will become lifelong learners and immune with a sense of good citizenship or active citizenship, if you like, who are willing to take a leadership role, who are very concerned about ethical behavior. And we believe that in producing healthcare professionals who are not only intelligent and responsible, but capable of becoming leaders in our country in the future. Now, I'm very pleased that the APU Debating Club, actually I remember that they've been active for as long as I've been here, which is 15 years. And they've been very active in managing this process and getting our students to be fully engaged. And Professor Fishner here has been the one who started all this process. The success of this club has been the result of the commitment and the energy of the APU debating students who, in spite of their busy academic programs, continue to organize, to lead, and participate in the debating teams and the competitions. This is very important, as you all know, because it helps to develop many things. The confidence to stand here, to be able to communicate effectively, to be able to think on your feet, to be able to put across your ideas and your points in a constructive way. And this helps in the future to advocate in the interest of your patients and the community. This year, the APU Debating Club has developed a partnership with Pemandu, which is a very important development for us. We are very pleased that that is possible. And the Malaysian Institute for Debate and Public Speaking, just through these close ties and collaboration, that APU is jointly hosting this particular event, the Kopitiam Ekonomi Debate Challenge 2015. And I think your MC has clearly stated how the action this afternoon is going to take the form, right? Going to be very, very exciting. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank all of you for being here. I would like to thank Pemandu for their support and importantly funding this event. I'd like to thank all the teams, all 60 of them, for participating in this debate. And I'd like to congratulate the teams that are in the grand final this afternoon. So thank you very much for your presence here.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri. Folks, Datuk Sri Idris Jala really wanted to meet you all this afternoon, but he's been called to an important meeting overseas. So on behalf of Pemandu, please join me in welcoming Director of NTP Comms, Pemandu, Mr. Alex Skandaliu.
Good afternoon. Hang on a minute. Experience it. When you're 50, the first thing to go is your eyesight. Okay, yang berbahagia Tan Sri Dato' Abu Bakar Sulaiman, Dr. Mening Yang, Professor Vishnu Devi, and everyone here in the hall. I'm most honored to be here today. Dr. Sri Idris is not able to make it today because he's been called away on business travel. So let me try and provide some context about why Pemandu is actually involved in this debate competition. Over the course of the last 2.5 days, the debaters have exercised the very convictions of what Malaysia is moving towards, a developed nation. I'm sure if some of you are familiar and being a very learned group that you are, I'm fairly certain that you all understand the National Transformation Program, which began 6 years ago. What we have done is actually to transform this country in both socio-economic areas to move the country towards a very developed nation and a high-income nation. The debating scene has brought to life the type of mindsets that are imperative for any developed nation to thrive. Pertinent issues that challenges growth and sustainability shouldn't be overlooked but discoursed factually. Each year, for the last 3 years, by collaborating with MIDP and academic institutions, this platform has been no small measure in exercising freedom of speech. We feel that, or at least, Pemandu personally feel that these are grounds for a good foundation towards the country's movement of moderates. So individuals who debate factually, develop awareness, clear understanding, and a firm conviction in what can be logically proven. What better way than to nurture a learned society in a structured environment as such? My team and colleagues who have been here over the last 2 days expressed that the motions that was debated on are very robust topics that I think the public should be made aware of. I'm not sure if we have covered this in an AD presentation, but I'd like to hope my team actually consider this, to take some of these sound bites and make it public. Because I feel that what is discussed here amongst the young generation is necessary for the older ones to actually take stock of. To be able to stand against and for these motions clearly brings about quality and a high level of discipline. Here I'd like all 70 teams who participated in this competition to stand tall and be proud of your contributions. This undoubtedly augurs very well for Malaysia as a learn and express nation. Individuals, I've been told individuals such as Jasmine Ho, Mirzal Muhammad, Sarah Ibrahim, and Amira and Natasha Moore. Are they here today? They're not. The Cambridge team? Okay. Yeah, have made Malaysia proud by emerging as champions at the Cambridge InterVarsity Debating Competition. Syed Sadiq himself has also emerged for the 3rd time as head Asia's best debater. So that's another good thing for us. This is exactly what the country needs, young leaders in their own right. Although Malaysia can be considered a mature society, we are still in our infancy when it comes to understanding social democracy. We need to be able to share opinions, accept opinions, and have factual discourse without labeling those that disagree with our ideals. Too often, public arguments are bordered between being anecdotal or, if you want to even acknowledge, politically ludicrous. Through social media, certain spectrum of society have also become social adjudicators, where if you're not with me, you're against me and you're wrong. Structured debating allows for ideas to be considered, knowledge and ideas to find our own growth, and hence, Pemandu is looking to adopt the KE Debate Challenge concept to a national school level competition in dual language in 2016. At least that's our idea. So, fingers crossed, as Tan Sri mentioned just now, Pemandu is funding this, but our budgets are cut. So, fingers crossed, we can get this off the ground with some good corporate sponsors behind it. Because I do see longevity in this sort of activity for the younger generation. I didn't know. I actually learned something during semi-finals just now, and I was told that there's this thing called a point of view. During my time, you can only interject when I finish speaking. So that was something really fresh and new to me, and I think that's what's needed. Young individuals like yourself coming onto a stage, a very structured and controlled environment where we're able to discuss and deliberate, and also, you know, put your opinions across factually. So that's really a good sign. I really hope and you know, come next year, if the KE Debate Challenge happens, which I hope it does, if we get money, we'll be able to carry this on probably on a quarterly basis, where we have a grand finals at the end of the year or a semi-finals at the end of the year. Let's try it. I'm still mulling over the concept. So part of the idea is actually to have a round robin competition every quarter. So that's for my team to decide on and try to work out the mechanics. But do keep in touch with us, do keep in touch with MIDP, do keep in touch with IMU or your respective colleges or where you come from. We'll be actually speaking to most of them and trying to get this on the ground, because this is a collective effort. And what we have here today, although this is over the course of 3 days, this is something that Commando really actively wants to pursue. Okay, so I'll hand the floor back to the MC and let the grand finals begin.
Right, I remember 20 years ago when I was in secondary school. 20 years ago, I was a captain of my debate team, the school debate team. I think my nemesis team is here somewhere. MCKK, where are you guys? MCKK, all right. I'm from Star Ipoh. I beat you guys Zone Utara in 1995. No, but you guys did a good job. And we've had a long tradition of debate the two schools. Hey, I'm glad that you guys are here. I'm glad everybody is here. Now, the grand finals are about to begin. This has brought back memories to me. Nerve-wracking, adrenaline pumping. And you guys feeling it? You felt it for the past 3 days? Yeah? You guys excited for the finals? Yes? Yes? Come on! Come on! So now, I'm going to pass the mic over to the Chief Adjudicator, Rafiq Saladin, to kick things off.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to witness the pinnacle of the Kopitiam Ekonomi Debate Challenge 2015. For the past 2.5 days, we have had 7 rounds of contentious, complex debates about every debater's favorite topic, which is economics. We've had debates about salaries of government officials, we've had debates about whether we should ban Uber and Grab Taxi, we've had debates about having quotas for women in companies. And I'm actually glad, I'm really glad that we have the Kopitiam Ekonomi Debate Challenge, a tournament where we can have all these discussions and shout and argue with each other. Because if these sorts of debates and discussions happen in real Kopitiams, no one would go to those Kopitiams anymore. It would be way too noisy. So I would like to introduce the judges as well as the teams who will be participating in the final. But before I get to that, I would like firstly to extend my warmest thanks to firstly the members of the Performance Management and Delivery Unit, the Commando team, who made all this possible. Starting with Jacinta, Cassandra, Anuja, and Julia. They have dedicated their weekend. They dedicated a weekend in December where everyone should be on holiday, but they're here and making this possible. It was a great success. So thank you very much to the team from Commando. Give them a round of applause. I'd also like to thank the International Medical University. Thank you very much, Tansri, for allowing us to come to your university. It's very beautiful. Thank you to Prof. Vishna for making all this possible. Thank you for allowing us to use your rooms. It's a very comfortable venue. It's lovely facilities. Now I'd like to invite, now I'd like to introduce to you the Grand Finals adjudication panel. So for these Grand Finals, we're going to have 9 judges who will be adjudicating this Grand Finals. Starting with the Director of Communications of Commando, Mr. Alex Iskandar Liu. Mr. Arjun Gopal from International Medical University. Ms. Deborah Wong from University Malaya. Mr. Martin Kadri from Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. Mr. Patrick Chiang from University Malaya. Mr. Mithun Swaminathan from Help University. Ms. Alison Jong from University Malaya. Mr. Wong Ka Hong from Methodist College, Kuala Lumpur. And Ms. Bihashini Gopakumar from Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. So there will be 4 teams participating in this grand final, as of every debate that we've seen throughout the tournament. On opening government, we have a composite team, the team P. Ramlee and Rajini, comprising of Mr. Zim Ahmadi and Mr. Kavindra Vasudevan. Mr. Zim is a 22-year-old 4th-year law student at International Islamic University, Malaysia. And his partner, Mr. Kavindra, is a 17-year-old student of Sri KDU Private School. On opening opposition, we have also another composite team, firstly comprising the team Cambridge Mara Sendirian Berhad, comprising of Ms. Jaina Jafar, who is a 22-year-old 3rd-year law student at University of Technology Mara, Shah Alam, and also Mr. Lucas Lee, who is a 28-year-old graduate from Cambridge University and who is currently a trade investment promotional consultant with the Singaporean government. He says that he does the Singaporean equivalent of Pemandu, or he is with the Singaporean equivalent of Pemandu. On closing government, we have a team from University of Technology Mara named Team Mara Hannakiri, comprising of firstly Mr. Mifsal Muhammad, who is a 22-year-old 3rd-year law student at University of Technology Mara, Shah Alam, and also Ms. Hannah Dalila, who is 19 years old, a 1st-year law student who is making her first ever appearance in a grand final. On team closing opposition, we have a team from Asia Pacific University, comprising of firstly Mr. Mustafa Al-Badwihi and Mr. Behrat Taduri. So Mr. Mustafa was born in Egypt, raised in Brunei, and now he is here in Malaysia. He's a certified financial planner licensee from Asia Pacific University, and he also has an undergraduate degree in international business management. Mr. Behrat is from Iran, and worryingly is studying mechatronics engineering in Asia Pacific University. So those are your finalists. And now, please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, your grand finalists at the Kopitiam Ekonomi Debate Challenge. I'd now like to call this House to order. For members of the audience, please be reminded to switch off your mobile phones or to keep them on silent mode. Please ensure that you do not, please keep all cheering to a minimum, and please try to keep any verbal communications also to its minimum volume. We do not want to disturb the speakers as they are speaking. Members of the audience, please also be reminded not to enter or exit the hall whilst speakers are speaking. If you wish to exit the hall, please do so in between speeches. So the motion before the House for the grand finals of the Kopitiam Ekonomi Debate Challenge 2015 is that this House believes that Malaysia's decision to ratify the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement should be put to a public referendum. Once again, I'd like to remind everyone of the teams. Firstly, on opening government, we have Team P. Ramlee and Rajni, comprising of Zain Ahmadi and Kavindra Vasudevan. On opening opposition, Team Cambridge Maras, Darian Barhat, comprising of Jaina Jafar and Lucas Lee. On closing government, we have Team Mara Hannakiri, comprising of Mirza Muhammad and Hannakiri. And on closing opposition, Team Asia Pacific University, comprising of Mustafa Al-Badwigi and Berat Tadul. Without further ado, I'd now like to invite the Prime Minister to speak on the motion that stands in his name. Here.
Can I hold the mic? Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, the day I knew the TTPA was passed was the day I knew that there would be patents toward generic drugs, the day I knew that such policies would be infringing my right to expression as well as my right to access everything that I used to do before but now being restricted by such a thing such as the TPPA. Today's debate is not about whether the TPPA is bad or good. We feel today's debate is about whether a public referendum is necessary in order for us to actually get society's views onto whether they want such a policy to be passed in status quo. I'll be doing for you a few things as the Prime Minister. I'll be explaining to you what a public referendum is, what is the current status quo when it comes to the TPPA, and why is it bad. I'll also be explaining to you the harms that are existing when there's no balance in status quo, as well as why we need public referendums to exist in our society. Firstly, what are public referendums? Public referendums are basically when you have a direct vote of the people. We don't think that direct vote of the people. This means that if you lobby for the TPPA, you would vote for the TPPA. Next, what is the TPPA? Sit down, it's only 1 minute. Now, what's the TPPA? The TPPA is basically a gradual deduction of tenants, and also more standardized platform for established corporations, such as some things that they're going to argue upon. Now, what is sad about the TPPA in status quo is something that is more relevant towards our case. We say in status quo, there's no debate onto whether or not the TPPA is legitimate and whether or not it should be passed. Why? Because there are long documents onto whether society, whether they have access to those documents or not. Secondly, it's complicated and it requires a lot of deliberation. And thirdly, the deliberation is not done well by the experts that are existing in status quo, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let me talk about the first argument onto why we need and we want the balance in status quo. We believe that now the experts in society have to put into account their practicals and as well as their feelings. So now we're giving them a platform for them to choose whether or not their feelings are in line to what the TTPA gives them. Because you'll have some parts of society which want to conform to what the TTPA gives them because they feel it's justified towards what they work or towards their living standards, whereas you also have another portion of society which would not want to conform to TTPA because it infringes their rights at the end of the day. Another reason why we think that TTPA is harmful is because of the presence of the ISDS. So now, they can actually win lawsuits and they can actually change the laws and protections of resources if the TTPA is going to be passed. We say, now in status quo, society does not have a say towards such things. Because in an event where the society is going to be screwed, what can they do about it with the presence of the ISDS that are existing in status quo? Secondly, we feel discussion should be inclusive and also possible. Sit down, I'll take you later. So people can express their feelings through discussion because discussion is more relevant towards how you want a policy to be passed and whether or not the policy is relevant towards what you want to be implemented towards the future of society. But even going to argue upon is that TTPA is such a large scale form of actually trading. Such a large scale form of trading. We say in status quo, there are already tons of bilateral trade agreements that are being passed. For God's sake, there's ASEAN, which actually enforces such trade policies similar to what the TBPA offers us, but only then we do not have the USA, which is actually controlling what the TBPA is actually doing. Next, let me talk to you about consent and why it's so important, even if the TBPA is going to be passed. Before I move on, sure, Mustafa.
You said this debate isn't about whether the TBPA is good or bad. So let's move on to the principal part. Why is it that an objective economic policy that can be objectively assessed on harm or good should be let out to individuals' feelings?
Sure, that's what I was talking about, consent. Why is consent important? It's because society will actually vote for the problems that they're facing right now. Two problems existing in TBPA and why there's a need for consent to actually exist. It's because if societies it simply just screws up a group of society. Because right now in status quo, the TPPA allows for patents of generic drugs to be passed. It reduces the consumer's ability to obtain these drugs. Who is being affected, ladies and gentlemen? Not people like you and me, but the poor who need these drugs and the poor who are in situations where they probably need the drugs more than us. Secondly, they restrict the freedom of expression, which was what Mustafa wanted me to actually say. It restricts the freedom of expression. Why? Because the TPPA now allows such things such as the ISPS to actually do what they do in status quo. We say now, if society was to launch a complaint about the TPPA, will it be heard? With such things such as the ISPS, their whole freedom of expression is being infringed, and we think that is a right that should never be infringed. Even if you want to make the trade-off of economic policies and economic tradings, we say without a legitimate referendum, you're not conforming to a society, and whether they want their freedom of expression to be infringed. Now, let me explain to you why is there a necessity to actually have a public referendum. Because no pages are left now in the century. Politicians now would have to convince society onto why the TPPA is actually necessary. So now there are going to be more stringent policies onto actually explaining to a society that these things are necessary. So you cannot simply just go around and telling, yes, the TPPA is good and that's why it should be enforced. Politicians now who are lobbying for the TPPA would have to explain to the uneducated people in society as well as the educated onto why it's so important. Now, they are going to bring up the whole issue onto there's no point in us actually talking to the uneducated people in society. Why does that matter even with the public referendum? We say even if he talks about the uneducated, we say through this form of public discussion, when the politicians have to convince society that TPPA is good, we say it's more relevant than you pulling wool over their eyes by telling society that the TPPA is good. We feel through this form of discussions, you're not only educating society, but you're also going through the TPPA agreements one by one, making sure that there are no policies are actually going to screw up society in the long run. So now under our side, what's the status quo are we willing to create? We're going to create a status quo where society will be more educated towards what they're going to face with the TPPA, and we are also creating a status quo where we want society's voices to be heard, and we want society to have a say in what policies are going to affect their future. As a young boy, I think my voice should be heard.
Thank the Prime Minister for opening the debate. And now to hear from the opposition bench, I'd like to invite the Leader of Opposition, Ms. Jaina Jafar, to give her speech.
Yes? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, opening opposition will provide some much needed context in how the TPPA operates and why it can be a genuinely good thing for Malaysia. I'm going to argue three things in my speech. The first of which is why the TPPA is a good thing for Malaysia in the global competitive network that we have right now. Secondly, why we allow for governments to make decisions, especially when there are objective and empirical outcomes that we can determine when it comes to economics. Thirdly, why we think public referendums, specifically in Malaysia, is traumatic and will degenerate irrespective of the outcome of that discussion. But before that, several points of context about the TPP. The first thing I want to make it very clear is that just because a country joins the TBPA does not mean you are removed from any other ability for you to participate in any other trade agreement, ladies and gentlemen. That is why Malaysia, as of this point, is a member of the AIIB as well as ASEAN and does not remove the ability to engage. Secondly, when you're talking about free trade agreements, in the TBPA, you have something called a bi-yearly reviews that allows for us to have processes of regular reviews to ensure that the system is carried out in an effective manner. Thirdly, we think that just because we ratify the TPP at the expense of taking upon consideration of things like feelings does not mean you have to give up everything from Malaysia. That is why in the TPP right now there is something that we call there is a clause that allows for nations to decide what is strategic interest and should not be circumvented by the TPPA. These are things like legal services as well as oil and gas. Lastly, we will argue that nations are given the ability to strategically implement the TPPA in stages to ensure that the implementation allows for the consideration of people within status quo. What do we support in opening opposition? We will support the ability for you to educate individuals in Malaysia about what the TPP is and why it is necessarily important. It may not be done by the state. We can agree with that as well. It can be done by other trustworthy bodies like Pemandu or like the EDP, ladies and gentlemen. We think that it can very well ensure that people understand. I will tell you in my third argumentation why it is far more likely that the ability for us to convince individuals will be riddled and politicized and muddled to ensure that people vote a particular way. On this idea that expressing feelings, we don't think that we circumvent this ability in status quo. We think that people still have the right to access their vote, as well as the right to consent to a political framework where you choose things like representatives based on manifestos. We think that people can very well accede to a political framework that ensures for a calculation that accounts for their feelings, ladies and gentlemen. But moreover, it allows for an objective evaluation of thinking. And we think when you're talking about economic policies, oftentimes people have to operate in an objective manner in how they evaluate economic policies, because oftentimes there is an empirical evaluation as to whether or not particular economic policies are good for us. That is why we don't like policies that are attached to things like feeling, that we choose to exclude other communities or other races, ladies and gentlemen, something that has been done in the past in Malaysia, and we have seen that be very problematic. At the point at which you utilize feelings, I know very well about this. Firstly, why is the TPP a good thing for Malaysia? Especially in the context of a competitive economy, ladies and gentlemen. We think that right now, Malaysia has to be strategic in how they position themselves, especially in the global framework. We think at this point, there are many things in which Malaysia is attached to that may not be strategic or may not be positive in how people view that. Therefore, we think that the economic framework is one of the most positive ways in which we engage with the rest of the world. Secondly, we think at the point in which we enter the TPP, oftentimes you fight for the same direct pool of investors and market from countries like the United States and Canada that allows for a larger market, ladies and gentlemen. We think that at this point, if you don't engage in this policy, and it's very likely that people might not, given the context in which opening government set this debate, is that other nations right now will overtake you. Countries like Japan, countries like Vietnam have a competitive advantage over countries like Malaysia, and that's something that we will not accept. We will also say it is far more likely right now that Singapore will overwhelmingly control the direction of foreign direct investments, therefore, at the behest of the people of Malaysia, ladies and gentlemen. So what is more strategic for the government of Malaysia right now is not to be held at ransom by individuals that can tell you that we need to rely on things like feeling. We need to ensure that you are viewed as a meaningful and legitimate economic ally to ensure that you can make some changes in the TPP to not only benefit countries like Malaysia, but every single other country that exists right now within status quo. Sit down. Secondly, why do we allow governments the ability to make decisions without public referendum? Firstly, we will argue that the reason why you elected a government into power to begin with is to ensure that they carry out certain responsibilities as a representative of individuals. That's why we give them things like election terms and mandates to ensure that they have time to put things in place and not acting on a knee-jerk reaction based on what I feel today or what I feel tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. On a comparative, we think that governments can make better long-term calculations because the goal of the TPP right now is to access global competitiveness and the ability to be in the cloud to make a decision or to impact the economy versus retention conspiracy theories. Every single thing that we do right now is a Zionist propaganda to take over Malaysia as opposed to evaluating whether or not it is objectively good, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, we will argue it's better. Lastly, why a public referendum in Malaysia will degenerate either way of the outcome on the opening.
Are experts emotionless, independent, non-partisan robots?
Okay, here's where I'm going to talk about experts and why it is far less likely that they will have an incentive to ensure that the rakyat of Malaysia will be able to understand the TPP, ladies and gentlemen. Let's first acknowledge that the largest voting bloc that exists within Malaysia right now is a rural populism, ladies and gentlemen. Oftentimes, and let's be brutally honest and acknowledge that everything in Malaysia is an issue and is often politicized in the wrong way, ladies and gentlemen. We're not going to argue in opening opposition that people of Malaysia are stupid, because obviously we are not. We're quite great, right? But we will argue, ladies and gentlemen, oftentimes the way in which we engage with people is often to what is strategic for us and how we best get that vote. So let's look at the methods in which we will then engage to make them understand. We think that oftentimes experts under that side of the house will engage in like videos or sentiments that dumb things down to ensure that people don't genuinely understand the intricacies behind the TPP. We've seen this in many different instances where we were explaining things like GST, for example, or we were explaining things like progressive taxation. Oftentimes the rhetoric is, you don't have to worry so much about it, as long as you understand a little bit, that's enough. We think that these are particular measures that will be utilized by experts under that side of the house to push them to particular decisions, ladies and gentlemen. The outcome is, oftentimes we think that people will conflate the ill feelings of particular results to things like trade and not view it in an objective manner and polarize individuals. The comparative here is this. We think that people can make better decisions in terms of economic policies at the point in which it has already happened. There are empirical evidence to tell you whether it is a good thing or a bad thing, ladies and gentlemen. We think people are more empowered to make decisions at the point in which it is not based on things like presumptions or things like predictions, as opposed to actual objective outcomes of economic policies. I've never been prouder of it.
Thank Ms. Jaina, the Leader of Opposition, for opening the opposition case. Now to continue the debate on the affirmative bench, I'd like to invite Mr. Zin Mahmadi, Deputy Prime Minister.
Test. Can all of you hear me? Jay wanted to characterize the debate that Malaysia is unfortunately consistent of single issue voters and people who are involved in racial rhetorics and emotional sentiments. I think these people exist in governments in Malaysia. That's why I feel that considering this particular context, the check and balance necessarily exists better when more people are part of that particular discourse, as opposed to when we leave experts expecting them to be independent. In my speech, I'm not going to prove to you the normative value of whether or not the TPP is bad or good, the way Jay talked about how TPP is normatively good. I'm going to talk to you about how even if the TPP is good, why a public referendum involves, necessitates readiness for individuals to accept economic policies and enable them to adapt, as opposed to prematurely imposing it upon them. In my speech, I'll talk about two major things. First, I'm going to talk about the question I said just now. Secondly, I'm also going to talk about how necessarily you entrench the elites in power when it comes to economic policies, and you don't allow for poor people to climb that economic ladder, considering that this is an economic debate. This is a very good argument. Let's talk about some rebuttals I don't think belong in this question. Firstly, I think this idea that experts should make objective decisions are things that are altruistic, because I'm not going to say no, experts cannot make objective decisions. I will tell you two things. Firstly, I don't think economic decisions are decisions that only should be based upon objective outcomes. Your emotions do not matter any less when it involves things like taxations, when it involves things like agricultural subsidies, and the survival of your farmland, or your property, or your medicine. We think these things matter as much as well. Secondly, it's because we believe the check and balance is all the more important Because most often than not, experts are elitist people who are detached from the reality on the ground, so they only base their decisions upon the quote-unquote objectivity of statistics, as opposed to the real consequences on the ground. Secondly, this idea of politicization of the rural populism, which Jay talked about, sit down. They said, look, but rural people are individuals who are ignorant, that's why they cannot decide these particular matters. But then again, they're also okay with educating these individuals. So if you do realize that there is a possibility of them getting smarter and being able to understand the TBPA, we don't think the ignorance of rural populations is going to be an entrenched reality. We can change that. In fact, my first speaker told you that we have the higher capacity to change that because governments don't just sidelines or talk about convenient things that make TPPA good, but have to persuade the population exactly what is in the TPPA, why it's necessarily beneficial, by dissecting every clause within a particular agreement as opposed to really choosing what to say within their manifestos. Secondly, they say, but look, politicians are given mandates and are representative of the people on the ground, that's why we should allow for their decisions to be continued. Firstly, we don't think that's necessarily the case, especially within Malaysia, because considering the contextualization in which there's a majority race and there are elections in which they are unfair or people don't really get represented by their MPs, it's all the more dangerous for you to rely upon the MPs to make decisions for everyone, and everyone, especially within disenfranchised communities. So considering all of those things, let's go to my first question. Why exactly, even if the TPPA is voted yes and it's good, we want to be allowing individuals to adapt to it? Firstly, there is no normative wrong with capitalism. We love it. But we think capitalism becomes awful when it's imposed upon a country prematurely, and the ability for people to decide what is a maturity should also include as many of the population within the demographic. What do I mean by this? For example, about the imposition and enforcement upon corporations having ISDS, at least we can tell the people, look, here are the reasons why TPPA is good, and the people can say, look, maybe we should improve policies on SMEs first, so that they're able to have some more capital against corporations when we have to sue them within the ISDS, as opposed to always having a power imbalance between huge corporations who can decide our policies now under the TPPA, as opposed to the ones which can be check and balanced by the people on the ground. People get to decide when they are ready for these policies, that's why it's necessarily good. But secondly, it's also because we think that when it comes to the ISDS, a lot of the impositions which we talk about, like there are feedback systems and reviews, these things are still heavily monopolized by corporations and by countries that have bigger economic policies that don't do this transparently. So individuals aren't really able to evaluate if things are not transparent at the end of the day. But secondly, we don't think lawsuits are democratic. Lawsuits are based upon things like how much money can you invest upon councils within the arbitration companies, in which these companies are able to have a bigger say in it. We don't think ISDSs are always bad, but because this capital evolves in an environment in which Malaysia is drastically different from America's economy, that's why we shouldn't compromise it when they're not ready in as of yet. But before I move on, yes, opening.
Rhetoric that is negative and harmful. How do you accept this trade-off under the ability for people to have some feelings in the discussion?
Because I feel that the comparative is people who are emotional in governments making unilateral decisions and people who are emotional with votes having a check and balance with expert decisions on the ground, and everything is included within the particular characterization, right? Because all their arguments that experts will be much more accountable, we don't think really sells in this game. But let's take it our best case scenario. What if experts are better in making decisions? Why aren't we allowing for them to make these unilateral decisions? Firstly, it's because of the fact that these experts are still inherently detached from the many sentiments of these people and only think about the overall growth of the GDP and purchasing power parity, as opposed to an individual to be able to achieve that particular yardstick at the end of the day, considering that they cannot even support their SMEs, considering that their patents are always infringed by big corporations that buy off all their intellectual property and generic drugs. All these things need to be taken into consideration. But secondly, how do you entrench political bias and power upon the economic free trade? Sit down. Firstly, we think Jay misrepresented my first speaker's argument when she said that, look, we can still have bilateral agreements with other countries. This argument was supposed to prove to you that even if the conglomerates in TPPA won't accept us because we have referendums, it's not like we will be screwed over, right? There are other bilateral agreements in which we can enter. That's why we won't really be as non-competitive as they were like, you're out of order. But secondly, I want to talk about how necessarily this is better under policy, because right now the TPPA is a situation in which people with bigger economic powerhouses can control that particular discussion. We do acknowledge that not all the future agreements are never equal. There are always people who are much more powerful than that, but at least we mitigate the inequalities that happen when it comes to this political power play and discussions by ensuring that even people within those countries have a decision. That's why even in educated America, in essence of America, people kept fighting for the TBPA to be disclosed because they want to be part of the discussion and not ensure that their governments unilaterally decide for what they think is good for the people at the end of the day. In order to actually have a free trade agreement that benefits as much people as possible, let's have the people who are actually affected by the consequences have a say. OG provided a balance. We didn't say expert decisions are always wrong. We didn't say these free trade agreements are always wrong. But we think in order to make the best decisions, we should account as many opinions as possible and account for people who will get screwed over or even benefit from it. Because we're the ones that enforce the democracy and not a lack of transparency that's happening so far in the proceeding of the TBPA that we regret, I'm proud to propose.
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister, for that speech. Now, to continue the debate on the opposition bench and to close the opening half of this grand finals debate, I'd like to invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition, Mr. Lucas Lee.
Three questions. Number one, in any country, people always have some say, be it at the elections, be it the ballot box, etc. The question is, can government officials or the people make better economic decisions? Secondly, is a formal referendum helpful, accepting that there will be discussion in this case? And number three, whether the TPP is a good or bad thing on balance for Malaysia, we need to tackle that question. The first thing under whether who can make better economic decisions is that the principle of OG is infinitely elastic. If people are going to be affected by a policy, they are then obliged to ask the people every time there's any major policy that affects them, like development policies or the ASEAN Free Trade Agreement or other free trade agreements or any defense type or anything. If you're willing to defend that, good for you. What OG said is that governments are also driven by single issues and they're desperate. But our argument is that governments are most desperate when they have to win an election or a few immediately. So when you put pressure on the government because they are riding their entire credibility on this, then they put pressure on economic agencies like the Mandu to dumb down the messages beyond what the Mandu would normally be comfortable with. So this is a comparative. We think the government is often able to have the courage to take long-run decisions without the immediate pressure when this is out of an immediate referendum, so that at least the gains can be realized and then we can have a proper debate. Now they argue, secondly, that subjective views and emotions should be accounted for in any decision-making process. That's why we have the ballot box now. Okay? Every 6 years, you also have some form of consulting the people. But here's the thing: what we feel in any economics debate, my coach tells me that the best way to make it win is about emotions, because emotions often override long-run economic gains. That's why debates on economics in theory are really boring. The idea is this: we can only have a meaningful discussion on economic issues once the gains or losses are concretized and in front of you. Then we can talk about it. That's why Jay talked to you about the 2-year review periods, which are particularly important. That's when we have a better economic decision making. And they then argue that experts only care about GDP. This is an insult to all good civil servants, myself, Pemandu, etc., who are put in there to serve the rakyat, Mr. Speaker. We are ultimately still a civil service in service of the nation. So we do think that even if you're cold-hearted and bureaucratic, our government isn't. So there's already sufficient pressure on civil servants like you and me to make sure we make good decisions for the people in this case. Second point of contention: is a formal referendum helpful? And the argument coming off the entire gov bench is that experts must evaluate their opinions with the people for them to be valid. We already do this. That's why Jay told you, things that OG left out, came on a minute in, that there's already a 2-year review period, and every 6 years there's an election. Yes.
Sir, if this 2-year review period just consults the people and not allow for them to get power over decisions, what is the point of this consultation?
A 2-year review period does the following. Is our pharmaceutical sector suffering? Should we push back and increase the tariff we are allowed to roll back? Should we ask for a longer time frame for adjustment? Or is our farming sector ready to liberalize? Should we lower the tariff barriers? The review period allows us to calibrate the exemptions in every country is facing in the TPP. That is what it's really like in the free trade area. I mean, I work there, it's a pain in the ass. But we do this kind of thing. What we argue is that economic trade-offs have to be viewed in context, because some win, some lose, some effects like foreign investment kick in over time. But the trouble with having a debate which simplifies all this to the lowest common denominator is that people in this stakeholder debate, have often too much adherence to vested interests, for example, trade unions, which means that in this ostensibly objective debate, they're going to flood the media with outcry. There's going to be lots of campaigns that this is some kind of like conspiracy theory, because we find that government has a lot of faith in elite groups and politicians to conduct this debate objectively. But given that America and horror Singapore is in the TPP, this is hardly the most conducive environment for discussion. Everything is already going to become a Zionist or a BNP conspiracy, because as it is, trade is so archaic, it is so easy for these messages to be boiled down beyond problems. So now we give you this analysis. The end result is the following, and I give you 3 sub-outcomes. Number 1, no matter whether the outcome of the referendum is yes or no, there's already going to be a lot of ill feeling towards foreign investment. This is harmful, especially for the rural crowd in Malaysia, for whom they cannot be agnostic to foreign investment. It is part of improving jobs, lives, and opportunities, and the last thing we want to do for them is for them to hate it irrationally. Secondly, if the outcome of the referendum is yes, there will be deeper political divisions along lines of trade and jobs, which is hardly helpful, given that Malaysia is made up of several different states which need to work together in a union. And number 3, if the outcome of the referendum is a no, they're going to piss off the USA and EU, who expended a lot of diplomatic capital in your country to make sure this comes about. This means that even in your bilateral FTAs, they will no longer think you are trustworthy. You will, by the way, also make Indonesia and Singapore deliriously happy. That's not a good thing. So, the point of contention, that will Malaysia win or lose on balance? This is important because whether the TPP is probably a good thing is also part of this debate. And here I'd like to point out that the reason why we are called Cambridge, Mara, Sendiri, and Berhad is because our team actually fulfills the Bumi-Putra requirement. Because J clearly has the 51% in this relationship. As the TPP attracts foreign investors and the TPP allows Malaysia to retain a share because it's an exemption, this means that big firms like JGC and Samsung come in and collaborate with smaller firms like MISC Berhad in shipping and Mary Brown in the food and beverage business. This means this is not a matter of winning or losing. Malaysia can win together with the foreign firms. This is why we have free trade agreements. So this means that this long-term winning effect is not immediately seen by people on the ground who probably don't even know what MISC Berhad does. So, rebuttals to the other things that the opening government brought out. He said 3 things. 1, that corporations are transparent and will shut down discussion. But Mr. Speaker, this is an argument for improving judicial oversight. This isn't even a TPP issue, it's an issue of MITI. You take it up with them, they're the correct party. Number 2, he talked about patents. Over here, Mr. Speaker, there is an exemption for generic drugs under a 10-year adjustment period so that the patent laws are not immediately set in stone. Furthermore, exemptions also exist for severe life-threatening illnesses or persistent chronic diseases, and these processes are also open for review in the 2-year period. So the patent harms are not as bad as they make it out to be. There's a reason why America, when faced with a lot of opposition, scaled down on its insistence for patent rights. And number 3, they talked about how companies will be shut down by the ISDS. But in reality, it's not really so far-reaching because the law of the land in Malaysia on free speech still applies. If the suit is found to be without merit, the court can always throw it out. And these complaints are often taken into account in the 2-year review period already. So there's already a very healthy mechanism for feedback on the TPP, which means people do get some say. But waiting and opening opposition to get some say at the right time, when the gains are in front of you, when we know and we are able to make good decisions for what is good and what is bad. The TPP is Malaysia's first chance at advancement and integration to the global economy. Please don't let this pass and slip below your fingers like sand. We are very proud to oppose.
I thank Lucas, the Deputy Leader of Opposition, for his speech. That concludes the opening half. To begin the closing half of this grand final, I'd like to invite Mifsal Muhammad, the Member of Government, to give a speech.
Watch how opening opposition sneakily tells you that this debate isn't about the TPP being good or bad, then subsequently tries to place a moral burden on government to defend a society that would sign on the TPP because apparently it's so good. Ladies and gentlemen, it could very well be a possibility that free trade agreements means that local farmers lose their land, lose their jobs, and lose competitiveness, and therefore destroys local markets. It is a distinct reality that within a 2-year period, not even acknowledging the fact that perhaps the review board might be dominated by more strong countries, ladies and gentlemen, that it might fail and people get less access to drugs, even if not more life-saving treatment, then ladies and gentlemen, certainly more expensive drugs all around. In those scenarios, there could be disastrous effects either way on that front. So for them to say there's just this objectively good free trade agreement and therefore we can't rely on the apparently too dumb Malaysian public in order to make a decision is disingenuous at best in this debate. Ladies and gentlemen, we allow the public to make independent decisions in referenda all the time when concerning large decisions that might affect multiple facets of their lives because it fundamentally changes how their countries operate. We allow people to make referendum decisions on independence, even though it might have decisions concerning immigration, economic impacts, as well as the way that they live their lives, because we recognize that that single issue, ladies and gentlemen, fundamentally changes how they live their lives in this particular regard. This policy changes your legal systems, changes who you can hold accountable to, and changes not only perhaps legal economic impacts like your GDP growth, but fundamentally opens your country up to the ability for other countries like America, conglomerates, as well as Singapore, the scary PAP, ladies and gentlemen, to affect how you live your lives as well. That's why we think they fundamentally need to make those decisions. Two areas of extension, I'll integrate my rebuttals. Firstly, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's worth pointing out that public confidence has been severely undervalued in this debate. We will engage with the reality of, firstly, if this is something that's successful, ladies and gentlemen, why without public confidence, it will fail anyway. And secondly, ladies and gentlemen, in an instance where this policy might fail and is passed, why public confidence and putting it to public referenda at least mitigates the harms of that particular failure. Firstly, ladies and gentlemen, we're glad that Jay brought up the GST. The GST was never put to a public referenda, and when you see the impact of this particular policy is that it severely depressed public consumption. And the reason for that is because though governments have tried to explain post hoc, ladies and gentlemen, implementing this policy, how the GST work, trying to get everybody on board, people don't understand, or even if people do understand, with the amount of bad faith there is between the public and the government, people are unwilling to consume on post fact of you implementing that policy. The only way you are able to mitigate that particular public confidence deficit is by putting it to a public referenda where at the very least, ladies and gentlemen, people are able to campaign on both sides of the house. Sure, prior to the public referenda on the independence of Scotland, public opinion was very much slanted towards independence of Scotland last year, ladies and gentlemen. But through a months-long process of independent campaigning where information was provided, eventually they voted differently than what the initial opinion was. We think that they undervalue the ability for the Malaysian public to change their opinion on this side of the house. So at least under our side, even if this thing is supposed to be a good thing, if it is passed without getting public confidence, it will inevitably fail. Because what happens? You have perhaps the foreign companies coming in, but local companies unwilling to cooperate with foreign corporations. You have foreign companies wanting to sell items, but you have local politicians politicizing that particular issue and saying that you should boycott foreign intervention in that particular regard. That's why economists and also Mandu and all that, ladies and gentlemen, have to balance between what's objectively good while getting public buy-in in that particular regard in order to ensure that sustainable public confidence is internalized within that regard. So the complete disregard of public confidence on that side of the house fundamentally makes a possibly very good policy fail at the end of the day. That's why we break that deadlock, even if we accept that it's a possibility that this thing is good at the end of the day. That's why we think that it's exceptionally important to gain public confidence that way. But yes, ma'am.
Especially in the context of the sort of voters we predominantly have in Malaysia. Can you tell us why you're willing to sacrifice these voters to powerfully negative rhetoric and extreme politicization that is likely to scare them off trade modality?
Okay, this is the response. First and foremost, we think at the very least on the comparative under our side, people are able to change their minds because they're not held to party lines. Notice the recent National Security Council vote where not a single Barisan National member voted against, even though many had reservations for, when Pakatan Rakyat always voted against. Because parties are beholden to party lines and will never have diverse lines. Those are the politicians that you're relying on to ratify the PDP on that side of the house. At least individuals, irrespective of where you stand on the political spectrum, ladies and gentlemen, on one particular issue may disagree with the party that they typically associate with on our side of the house. So at least people can change their minds rather than the party with cracking politicians into agreeing with them even though they don't agree on that side of the house. At least we get people have the ability to change their minds under our side of the house. So you still have the radical politicians having the control over those politicized issues on that side of the house, and that's why we at least, even on the comparative, even on the worst case scenario where people are politicized, ladies and gentlemen, at least both sides are able to speak and people can change their mind on a comparative within that, ladies and gentlemen. So why can you sustain failure on our side of the house? Because at least on the outside, you are unable to politicize failure. On that side, the reality of a failing TPP is an inability for you to create new policies to deal with those failures. Why? Because you have politicians that will then politicize that failure and say, look, you didn't deal with the rakyat, you didn't get people's voices. This is an issue of BN, this is an issue of Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore, they will never move in that political deadlock because you are unable to dilute that political message by saying that people chose. Maybe we should move on and think about how do we deal with that situation at the end of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, we think it's highly unlikely that Pemandu or any other body will dumb down so much because, sure, dumbing down gets them popularity, but fundamentally, the failure of dumbing down too much is also unpopular for them at the end of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, public confidence fundamentally belies all trade agreements because it determines consumption, it determines an individual's ability to engage with all the economic benefits that you have. And if you don't have the public confidence in any economic policy you have and balance it out, you'll fundamentally fail, even if it's a good policy. Thank you.
I thank the Member of Government for his remarks. And now to hear from the closing opposition, I'd like to invite Mr. Behrat Tadoli, Member of Opposition, to give his speech.
We think after 8 years of negotiations to achieve the current treaty that we have, is not something so simple to explain to the public. Any process of negotiation includes you making very tough decisions, to making trade-offs and making compromises, ladies and gentlemen. And politicians understand very well if farmers are not going to have lands, for example, to farm. But there is another end to it, which is a game that the politician has decided to pick at the end of the day. I think the politician is at the best position to make that decisions because it's the fully informed individual who has been throughout the actions. We think it's not fair to expect the public, which have no reason to care about it besides his own individual's opinion, ladies and gentlemen, and compare it to a politician. We're going to talk to you about treaties. Firstly, we're going to explain to you further this process of negotiations and why tough choices are better being made. Like politicians are the only ones who can make these tough choices in comparison to people. Secondly, we're going to talk to you about how democracy works and why we are happy with the current operation of democracy and why this would further the capacity of the Malaysian government to negotiate or push for any policies. But before that, a couple of importance. Sit down. See. There's a problem. When it comes to independence thing, right? Firstly, when it comes to the UK government, they have referendums for a lot of things that happens over there. To join issue, not to join issue. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the right thing or it's not a right thing. But when it comes to the independence thing, this is an absolutely different thing. Because every single individual, not just them and their lives is affected, right? They're part of their identity. The fact that they can understand it simply and who they are going to be in the future is affected. This is something absolutely different comparison to the economic policy that you're going to have. If forever your country is going to be called Scotland and you're not going to be about Britain, it's something that you can equate to a public policy that's being passed. That's an unfair bet. But second, public confidence is not something that you always have to fight for. Because when it comes to any debates, you always consider public opinion because the party in itself wants to achieve the public confidence that you're going to have. Public confidence, you don't need public confidence to exist on one particular policy, but you need to have a greater public confidence for the government that is ruling and operating your country. And that's what holds people accountable and holds rulers accountable to do the right thing, ladies and gentlemen. You don't need to have public confidence for only one particular thing. He assumes that individuals have the capacity to disagree. And he assumes that parliamentarians, they don't. I think it's an unfair context for you to come here and expect us to defend the parliament that they have already made their mind and they don't have the rational calculus to make a decision. That's a burden that we don't take. We think the fair context of this debate is that parliamentarians are able to make a decision. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the only fair context that this debate can happen. But let's see how people disagree and how parliamentarians disagree. You're going to have a debate in parliament, ladies and gentlemen, and at the end of it, you're forced to come to conclusion. But in the morning, when you go to work and you're having breakfast with your colleague, you talk about TPPA, at the end of the day, you both agree to disagree. There is no force and there is no reason for you to disagree and try to convince an individual because you don't simply care about it. But when it comes to the parliament, you have the duty to care, ladies and gentlemen. You have the duty to protect the individuals that you're representing because the mandate has been invested in. Let's look at the first thing in this, ladies and gentlemen. I think when it comes to a compromise that you have made, the only individual who is fully aware of the compromise that is made is the people who are in the process. The process that we think the parliamentarians are the only people who have access to. This is the conclusion to some of my rebuttals as well. We think they agree with our opening, right? But they're going to give you additional analysis that why people might not be the best actors. Because people have other considerations as well as when it comes to those things. For example, TPPA can easily be considered and sold to people as a Western propaganda, ladies and gentlemen, as a Western imperialism idea. The fact that TPPA is going to be associated with a certain political party or with a certain leader might actually become a consideration for people at the end of the day. We don't think these are the things that keeps people rational at the end of the day, because those things can be very important to that individual, ladies and gentlemen, and those things can be more important in comparison to objective economic consequences that it's going to have. But on the other side, now you're going to have politicians, ladies and gentlemen, which have a smaller scale for you, and it's easier for you to educate them about the issue. But you need to consider the fact that most of these people, they are already very well aware of the compromises. These are the same people who have been attending those behind closed doors meetings, ladies and gentlemen. They have access to those classified information that you cannot necessarily provide for public. I take that from close.
A DP politician, and this isn't much stretch of reality, who doesn't believe that DPP is good, will still vote yes because they are weak by party lines. That's how parties operate. If not, he loses his job or his position. At least a person who sympathizes with DAP doesn't have to vote yes on this issue, but can still sympathize with DAP in general.
See, that ideology can be extended to the public as well. If you are living in a context that people are not able to dissociate themselves, that's an argument against Malaysian parliament. Get rid of all your MPs, have some rational individuals in your parliament to be able to be independent. That's not an argument against democracy. That's an argument against the entirety of the parliament, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a fair burden for me to defend that. I'm not going to do that. Just be fair, okay? Let's look at a couple of other things in this. We are very happy with how democracy works. Democracy is not about absolutely ensuring every individual is happy about every single thing. Democracy is about maximizing the happiness of the maximum number of people. Democracy has always been about optimization, ladies and gentlemen. That's why you grant your mandate to someone to represent you when you are not fit to make that decision. This is very important because your government should always be at the should always negotiate from the position of power, from the position that people see that they can trust you at the end of the day. This is what happened in Iran. Ahmadinejad could not negotiate with the West because they knew it doesn't have the mandate of the people. US refused to negotiate with Ahmadinejad. But when it comes to President Rouhani, because he had the mandate of the people, first negotiated with them, ladies and gentlemen. When you do that, when you require every single policy to be passed in the parliament, you're decapacitating the Malaysian government to further be trusted by all the other stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, to negotiate and try to gain and sign any other treaty. This is the harm that severely would affect you to become a major player in international community. We are very proud to boast.
I thank the Member of Opposition for his speech. And now to conclude the debate on the government bench, I'd like to invite Ms. Hannah Dalila, the Government Whip Speaker, to give her speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, we on Hannakiri today believe that it is good for you to be able to maximize democratic decisions, and that's why it is very much necessary for you to have a referendum in order to fulfill that maximization of democratic decisions. We think that this debate today will be about letting people decide whether or not that a ratification of the TPA should be done or not. We have several responses to CO. Firstly, his whole idea of letting politicians decide, his whole idea of letting politicians decide should be disregarded for a few reasons. Right? Firstly, we tell you, if you leave out these kinds of decisions, these decisions that affect the lives of the people up to politicians, there will never be any diversity of opinions. Why? Number one, politicians are voted by people. That's how a democratic nation works. Right? Secondly, because when you allow politicians to make decisions, or when you allow them to implement policies, firstly, what's going to happen to that decision is that decision will firstly suit the interests of these politicians and also their parties. But secondly, they will implement policies that can side with them, that can bring them benefits only to those parties, and that they can use that kind of decisions to make changes that they seem necessary for themselves. Because of that, we will never have to consider what public will have to think, because politicians will always have this whole idea that I'm going to do whatever it needs for my party to benefit from. The second thing he argued was that, thank you, Jay, he argued that people will also have to consider other things. We say that's exactly the point that we have today. But then he came up to you and lied to you that people would be able to care about the agreement, because they now don't understand what it means to sign on that agreement. We think that they also told you that people don't care because there's nothing to do with them. We say it's wrong. Yes, every single thing to do with the public. This is the reason why democratic nations can work, is because, firstly, it's because there is a participation of parliament in the nation. The reason to this, number one, is that if you want to allow economic policies to be passed, parliament has to decide whether they like these particular policies or not. They also have to determine what the aftermath of the decision themselves, which means that what happens to their very own people when they implement that very much decision. Thank you. We agree to that. We agree that you can politicize issues as Western issues, but we don't think that even if it's voted in by parliament, it doesn't stop from being politicized after the parliamentary vote. Thank you, sit down. Because it's already been passed in the parliament, it will be harder for you to gain public confidence. I'll tell you why in my issue. But before that, Jay,
can you tell us why it would be strategic for the Malaysian government to dispense this position to a larger and unaccountable scale that they can't direct accountability to?
You see, because it affects the lives of the people, obviously. Issue number one, does the impacts of TPPA that have been discussed in both houses today warrant public referendum? Firstly, we can see that the agreement may be good or bad, but under opposition, all the things that they have told you was that the agreement is easy because now, firstly, you can lower all these sorts of trade barriers, for example, that you encourage more businesses. However, these means that it will also be easy for foreign contractors to enter the local market and easily choke out other small businesses that you have in the market. Now, it also extends the protection. It also extends the protection of patents. That is what I told you. The harm to this is that now you allow companies to sue states, which we think is very much harmful. They ignore the fact that when they allow this to happen, if state impose any policies that harms companies specifically, that harms company businesses specifically, these very companies can now sue that very state for breaching that agreement. A good example of this, ladies and gentlemen, is that when Australia decided to raise taxes on tobacco, when they decided to raise taxes, when they put images of deformed infants, also like black ones, for example, on tobacco boxes, they all come to their decision, sit down. Philip Morris now sued the Australian government for this very decision. The result of this is this. Number one, this raises the likelihood of more companies being able to sue more governments, right? The second thing is that now you force the government to change policies every time they think that the policies will harm the corporation businesses. We think that's also harmful. Thirdly, is because because government is able to change their policies, subsequently your people are affected because your state implements policies that suit the corporation interest. If the public is affected by state's decisions, we think this warrants public referendum. Before that, Yang.
Tell us why a state isn't able to evaluate whether the ability of a corporation to sue it, why is the state unable to see whether that's good or bad for it? If you can see it's bad.
Look, states are able to evaluate because now you will always be subjected to that very agreement that you signed in at the very first place. Now, we want to talk to you about the nature of referendum at the very first place and why it's necessary, right? Because what Myth told you just now is that these referendums is used when government has to make large decisions that impact society as a whole. We can say this during independence, for example, right? Because similarly like the TPPA, striving for independence is a single issue, like what my member has written and told you. So when the opposition lied to you by saying that if you hand a referendum now, people will understand the independence that you wanted to fight for, or even even when Malaysia fought for the independence, the referendums are needed and are held through a very carefully planned processes, right? That's why we have representatives going to people on ground, asking neutral questions on what people think of independence, right? That's why we have a long period of time for politicians to campaign whether or not they want independence or not. But then public referendums are needed because of these reasons, right? Also, we think that you have to warrant public referendums because the public themselves are affected by policies and political decisions. Because when public is affected, ladies and gentlemen, that's when the referendum has to be warranted. When your policy affects the financial standing of your people, when your policy, like legalization of marijuana or abolishing death penalty, for example, when it affects the life of your people, that's when you need public confidence before signing into any agreement or when you decide to implement any sorts of policies. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we feel that have a public referendum before you sign into this agreement. Thank you.
I thank Ms. Hannah for the speech, and that concludes the government bench. To conclude the case of the opposition bench, as well as the grand final Kopitiam Ekonomi Debate Challenge 2015, I'd like to invite Mr. Mustafa Al-Badwihi, the opposition leader.
Call me an idealist, but I would like to believe that the Malaysian Parliament serves a purpose, and that purpose is to represent the views of the people and not just to toe a party line. I would like to believe that even if there are extremists within the parliament that vote along the party line, there are people who actually care about the impact that happens on the ground, not just because they want to get re-voted in, but because they entered into politics with the noble purpose of wanting to make the political system work. I would also like to believe that democracy is a functional process that trusts individuals to vote on behalf of individuals. What side opposition, rather government, does in this debate is ultimately undermine the entire integrity of the democratic process. If it were up to people Petronas would remain to be as protected as it was at independence. If it were up to people, we would have never imported cars from outside. If it were up to people, China would have never opened its doors to outsiders. Why? Because the government, through a democratic process, determines what policies are good or bad for the country, even if I have to step on some people. They needed to justify to us why they were happy to undermine the entire democratic process and set a precedent within the government that every single policy that one person screams about and says, it will hurt me and my children, needs to go through a referendum. That is the epitome of a public disaster in economic management and efficiency. Sit down. You needed to defend that. You refused to, because all you said was, well, this policy affects enough people for us to do that. Well, where do we draw the line? The only place you can draw it in, as the Americans like to say, is you're drawing it in the sand. Why? Because you can't continuously argue with people who is a lot more important. That's the position you put yourself in. The position that the government is in under our model is essentially a position of largesse, where you're able to assess what trade-offs you're willing to make. And that's why Behrad's argument went unresponded to. The fact that after 8 years of negotiation, we've reached compromises that are unprecedented. For the United States of America to open its automobile market, sit down to companies like Petronas and Japanese companies with very minimal to no tariffs is unprecedented. Something we didn't have 8 years ago. What does this mean? This means that the TBPA, yes, is not the best policy. FYI, we like the TBPA, we think it should pass. Yes, it's not possibly the best policy, just to make my life easier. It's not necessarily the best policy. It's unideal. Maybe it's unoptimal, but it's the best we can get right now. It is the best we will ever get. You need to defend a world where there is a failure. And this is where we characterize closing government. When you talk about public confidence, nobody liked the GST. When Australia imposed it, nobody liked it either. But down the line today, everyone in Australia thanks the Prime Minister that arm twisted the public into accepting the GST. Yes, there will be backlash. Yes, there will be a dip in spending. Yes, people might sit down and mangamok for a while, but there are companies that want to collaborate. I want to get richer. I'd happily collaborate with an MNC to grow a business in Malaysia. And eventually, after crying in a corner for a while, you realize that crime does not result in economic liberty or economic freedom for you as a person. And therefore, you'll get back to the drawing table and you'll participate in the process. So yes, we're happy for people to be unhappy. But here is the clincher. Sit down. That side essentially is voting, or rather willing to put through a referendum that is definite to get a no. What's the purpose of a referendum if you already know what the outcome will be? Their response to this is, well, MPs will vote along party lines. Well, let's not take an extreme parliament. Let's take one where some people vote along party lines and others won't. We tell you that's a much better parliament. More importantly, these individuals have had access to the sort of information and compromises that Behrad talked to you about. But this leads me to the next step, which is the idea of how the economic infrastructure at large will be affected. But before I go on, I'll take closing. That's exactly where we find it problematic, and that leads me to the next step of our case that was also left unengaged from Behrad. When Behrad talked to you about the concept of compromises and negotiations with countries like the United States of America, it wasn't like what Lucas told you when it comes to the US being pissed off in the future. No, we're talking the TBPA or negotiations within this debate should not just be limited to how the TBPA impacts people on the ground. It should be to the extent of what sort of economic precedent do we set to people on the outside. Will investors be confident in entering into agreements with a country like Malaysia? No. Why? Because investors, aside from agreements, also trust that a government has a government that is capable of imposing economic reform that might be radical, that might not necessarily be within the immediate short-term benefit of people on the ground, like killing the farmer on the ground for the interest of developing the economy at large. These are the sort of things that investors rely on. A government that is willing to bite the bullet and impose policies that are good for the economic infrastructure, but bad for some factors of society in the short term, in the interest for long-term development. Once again, why is this important? Investors don't just invest where there are agreements in place. Investors invest on the basis of investor confidence and their willingness to believe that the government has the ability and power to actually make decisions. In the instance where you send a message to the entire world that I can only make a decision at the behest of that little farmer who feels that they are hurt and their children will not be fed is something that's problematic and result in a mass withdrawal of foreign direct investment within Malaysia. When has this happened? Well, very recently, capital flight as a result of a lack of confidence in the willingness of the government to impose any policies. Hence why we see a significant amount of radical changes immediately
stability within Malaysia, the budget 2016, etc., etc. We tell you that this debate cannot just consider what the openings consider. Our opening opposition extensively argued in a way we call matter dumping, the way Singaporeans do. People are ill-equipped, they are political, they are rural, and review processes are helpful. Well, they also told us that the EU and the US will reject us. We thought that we consider aspects and factors from closing opposition that were unique to us. Aspects like how the political process is undermined at large, which disables the government from passing any policy meaningfully, both political and economic, in the long term and the future. We thought you were willing to accept the backlash of public confidence in the interest of maintaining the integrity of the state. What else should we uniquely bring you? We also told you that the economic negotiation and leveraging and bargaining process, not just with states, but with attracting foreign direct investors or investment into a state, where that little farmer can be benefited because the person is buying out that land in order to invest in, say, biotechnology or green technology, etc., etc. Those are the individuals who are disadvantaged. Here's the thing. Governments bite the bullet all the time against the will and interest of their people. Tough decisions are best made by people who have the least stakes in the game. We told you that. Parliamentarians are the most detached from poverty and the most detached from harm on the ground. That's why they're best positioned to make decisions that hurt poverty in the short term, but alleviate poverty and create social mobility in the long term. You needed to defend undermining the entire democratic process and creating an inefficient state both economically and politically. With that, we are proud to oppose.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa, for your speech. I'd like to invite all debaters to cross the floor, shake hands, and please take your seats in the audience. I'd also now like to invite the panel of grand final adjudicators out to the holding room, where you will discuss and deliberate and finalize the decision and finally crown the winners of the Kopitiam Ekonomi Debate Challenge 2015.